Today, let's get into a story about a man's fight for his dreams. It's a journey that, kicks off with so much hope, but then runs headfirst into the really tough parts of life. It's a story about what it means to keep going when literally everything is telling you to just stop.
And it all starts with this idea. Think about it. When you look at a road from far away, it seems pretty clear, right? Straightforward. But as we're about to see, once you're actually on that road, that's when you notice all the cracks, the potholes, and the sharp turns you just couldn't see from a distance.
So everything begins with that dream of a fresh start, that feeling of pure hope and ambition. I think we all know what that feels like.
Now let's talk about the guy at the center of this. He isn't some superhero or a once-in-a-generation genius. Nope. He's just an ordinary person, like you or me, who left everything he knew behind. His family, his home, all of it driven by these huge dreams for a better life.
And this was his promise, the vision he had for himself, a really clear, optimistic plan. Go, work hard, become a success, take care of his family, and one day walk back home, proud. Sounds simple enough, right?
Well, life doesn't always care about our plans, does it? And that brings us to the next chapter of his journey, the uneven road, where that shiny dream just slammed into a much, much harsher reality. The first year went by, then the second, and the third, and slowly the years just started to blur together, getting lost in one another like pages in some old dusty book, with absolutely nothing to show for all that time. And here's the really painful part. The years weren't just empty. He was actually going backward. It's like the more effort he put in, the further behind he seemed to fall.
So why? Why was he going in reverse? Well, it was just this relentless storm of setbacks, one piece of bad luck after another. Sometimes it felt like a cruel joke. Other times it was a heavy blow that just knocked him right off his feet. Every single time he tried to get back up, some small mistake or meeting the wrong person would just tear it all down again. And all this struggle, man, it came at an incredibly high price. Let's really take a look at what these years cost him. It started with the tangible things, his money. Then it got more personal. His friends started to drift away. But the deepest cuts, those were internal. He lost his confidence in himself. And then he lost the one thing that had fueled his entire journey, his hope. And this is so crucial to understand. His biggest fear wasn't just failing. It was the terror of being stuck on a treadmill, running as hard as he could and going absolutely nowhere. That paralyzing feeling that nothing you do matters anymore. He was just trapped.
You can just imagine him, alone in some small room, unable to sleep, his thoughts just spinning. And the first, rawest question that comes to mind is, why me? And then, of course, the self-doubt kicks in. That desperate search for a reason, for some kind of logic behind all the pain. Where did I go wrong? What was the mistake? And finally, he starts to question his own identity, his very place in the world. Am I just unlucky? Maybe. Maybe I was never meant to make it in the first place.
Okay, so this brings up a huge question. If things were so terrible, why was going home impossible? What was stopping him from just packing his bags and leaving?
Because he missed it. He missed it so badly. He was longing for those simple, perfect things you just can't replace, like the taste of his mother's tea, or hearing his siblings laugh, or just that deep feeling of peace that you only get at home.
The real reason he couldn't go back goes right back to that promise he made at the very beginning. See, he had tied his entire sense of self-worth to one single condition. He would only go back with his hands full, as a symbol of his success.
But this was his reality. As the years dragged on, his hands didn't just stay empty, they got emptier. The gap between his dream and his real life had become this giant, impossible canyon.
But this isn't where his story ends, not even close. Despite everything, we get to the final and maybe the most important part of this whole journey. That little spark that was somehow against all odds still alive. And this is where his motivation does a complete 180. He kept going, not because he was hopeful, but because he felt like he had to. He'd already invested his entire life in this path, and the idea that all that time, all that struggle would amount to nothing, that was just too much to bear. And somewhere deep down, buried under all the disappointment and the sheer exhaustion, there was still this quiet little voice whispering to him, a tiny spark, just saying, "It's not over yet."
So this is where we need to change how we look at this whole thing. This is not the story of a defeated man. It is not a story about failure.
No. Instead, it's the story of someone who, despite every single fall, every setback, every loss, is still standing. That's what resilience really is in its rawest form. It isn't about avoiding the struggle. It's the simple, profound act of enduring it and carrying on, scars and all.
And all of that leaves us with one final lingering question. Since he is still standing, is it possible that this entire brutal journey wasn't an ending at all, but maybe just the prelude? Could the true beginning of his life still be ahead of him?